Hey, Steve Saretsky here. As always, Canadian real estate market update with a particular focus on Vancouver. If you get any sort of value and entertainment out of these videos, I ask that you hit thumbs up and subscribe. Questions, comments, put those below. A couple things I want to touch on this week is obviously the COVID housing boom, the Canadian real estate sales in July. Obviously, a lot of huge policy moves. New Finance Minister Bill Morneau on the way out, and as expected, a revamped. Basically a new CERB program that continues with the Handouts, $37 billion to be exact. So I want to get into that as well, because I think all of these policy decisions are going to have long-term implications for Canadians, anyone that's basically watching this video. But I think you want to touch it off with the COVID housing boom. Which I think is not just in Canada, it's actually happening across North America. You're seeing basically people reprioritize their housing and living standards, obviously spending more time working from home, more time at home, that people are wanting to upgrade, get a little bit more space, move out from the city, get some better value out in the suburbs. So that's a trend that is happening across North America. So the COVID housing boom, if you look at the July sales figures for Canada, both sales and new listings hit record highs in July. So I don't think anyone, even the biggest housing bulls on this channel, we're anticipating that sales would rip to all-time highs. So again, this is catching a lot of people off guard, and I think that when you try to rationalize it, I think it really again it comes down to consumer preferences, spending more time at home, wanting to increase that lifestyle, which you can see most clearly in Home Depot. Home Depot second quarter sales revenues up 25% to all-time record highs. The average consumer spending 10% more per purchase at Home Depot. Obviously, again, people renovating, painting as they sit at home all day. And again, can't do that without some juicy stimulus checks, which the Canadian government unsurprisingly expanded. I tweeted this in June that the CERB would be extended till at least the end of the year, and if not, pushed further and further out. And we obviously got news that the CERB will be extended until the end of September, and then the new EI program, which is essentially, they call it the recovery plan, is essentially this. It's basically CERB that has been rebranded, as opposed to now getting $2,000 per month. You only get $1,600 a month to sit on your ass and not work. So again, obviously there's going to be a lot of perverse ramifications for that. And that new EI program is going to last minimum of 6 months, and I suspect if the economy isn't where the government wants it to be, their centrally planned economy, then they'll just probably extend it even further. But it creates all sorts of disincentives for Canadians to go back to work. People can collect 6 months of EI after working just 3 weeks. So if you had worked three weeks in the past year, you're now eligible to sit at home and collect $1,600 a month. And for any parent that can't go back to work because they want to take care of their kids or someone that's sick or disabled, you get $500 a week, or again $2,000 a month. So basically, CERB is still here; it hasn't gone basically anywhere, and I think that we are entering into that slippery slope. I understand that governments had to do something, but these are programs now where they are not going away, and I think that we've basically opened Pandora's box. So once you start basically handing out money to consumers, to households, and to businesses, you can't simply just take it away. You can't just give people $2,000 a month and then go cut things cold turkey and expect that people aren't going to be upset. So politically, there is zero desire from anyone to practice any level of austerity. In fact, it's politically popular now, where basically there's this notion that you can simply print money, hand it to people. So any sort of problem that you have, you just print money, you give it away, and there's no consequences. There's very little inflation today. We can simply just print money, and everybody thinks this is fantastic. I'm not really sure why anybody's really paying taxes at this point if you can simply just print money and it never needs to be repaid. These new programs are going to cost $37 billion, again, which will never be repaid. These will be effectively monetized by the Bank of Canada. We are already in the modern monetary theory landscape, which is, or you call it the magic money tree, which is essentially that the central bank is just going to stroke a check for all these, all this government fiscal spending, essentially. And so I think it's leading us down that path. And who better? Who better to lead that charge into MMT and universal basic income than Chrystia Freeland, the new finance minister. I don't know a whole lot about her, but if I go back and look at a lot of her past interviews, it's very clear to see that she is very pro spending, large social net, where I think she's a fairly large proponent of MMT. She actually follows Stephanie Kelton on Twitter, who is the godfather of MMT. So I think that you're going down a very slippery slope. And yes, I know Bill Morneau lost, part of it had to do with the WE scandal and whatnot, but from what I understand, there was this political rift between Trudeau and Morneau, that Morneau was being a little bit more cautious on the fiscal spending, and he was a bit concerned about how much was being doled out to Canadians, particularly the CERB program being as high as it was at $2,000 a month, and so that rift, I think, also didn't help. And so now that Morneau is out, we have Freeland coming in, and so. But again, this kind of comes back to the whole notion that we are getting further and further away from free markets, that you can have a free lunch, and that these markets are becoming more and more centrally planned by our policymakers, by government, by the Central Bank of Canada, etc. That any sort of reset for example, in interest rates or in the housing market will simply not be tolerated. And basically these guys would rather debauch and destroy their currency. They'd rather have a currency crisis than to let interest rates normalize and to crush the system and the level of debt. So the path out, again, is clearly inflation. We can see this in the fiscal spending, again, with this whole CERB thing morphing into a new glorified EI, that these programs are going to continue, because once you implement them, you can't simply just take them off. It's happening all over the world, and that's why I think never been more bullish getting into real assets at this time, as these currencies devalue and as inflation eventually will take hold in greater form. I think we've talked about in these videos that inflation is already much higher than the 2% that they claim, particularly in these large metro cities where the cost of living continues to accelerate at head-turning pace. So that's kind of stuff that I'm watching this week. I want to hear your comments on this whole basically the magic money tree and the kind of the path that this leads us down, because I really think that between JT and Freeland, not to get all political, but I really can't think of two better people to really lead the charge on this, that money is becoming extremely worthless, and I think that's going to show up in assets. And the fact, again, too soon, but the fact that house prices, for example, are rising in the midst of this depression, recession, probably should tell you that something is clearly broken. Again, I've said this before, but I would be less concerned if prices were coming off or even flat, because that's probably what they should be doing when your unemployment rate reaches levels that you haven't seen in many decades. So the fact that they're actually going up right now suggests to me that clearly there is something wrong in the monetary and financial system, and this is going to create more societal problems down the road. And so that's kind of what I have for this week. And my view continues to be that real yields will go sharply negative, that central banks, should the bond market decide that rates need to move higher, central banks will come in with every single bullet in the chamber that they have to push yields down, and they will simply move the goalposts and state that yields are only allowed to be at a certain price, and or they will mandate, for example, pensions, and they will mandate various agencies to actually have to purchase government bonds at whatever the yield may be. So again, slippery slope, but you have to understand that this is the system. It is much larger than me or you, and I guess all you can do at the end of the day is play the system. If that's the game that needs to be played, that's the game that unfortunately you have to play, even though morally I think it is wrong. So this video, brought you any sort of value or entertainment, hit thumbs up, give me the YouTube juice. Appreciate it. See you next week.